Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at a 2025 research study
Okay.
about healthcare professionals and how prepared they are for working with LGBT patients.
Right.
What's really fascinating about this deep dive is we're comparing two countries, Spain and Poland,
Yeah.
which have very different social and political contexts when it comes to LGBT rights. So get ready, because we're going to have some interesting insights into how those differences
For sure.
might actually play out when it comes to healthcare settings.
Yes. This study was published in the BMC Medical Education Journal,
Okay.
and they surveyed 673 healthcare professionals
Wow.
in Spain and Poland to understand how prepared they felt they were.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we dive into the study itself,
Sure.
can you give us a quick overview of what the social and legal landscape is in each country
Yeah.
as it relates to LGBT rights? That'll help kind of set the stage.
Absolutely. So Spain is considered to be like a pioneer when it comes to LGBT, right?
Yep.
They have strong legal protections, including marriage equality.
Gotcha.
And their society is also known for being generally pretty accepting of LGBT individuals. In fact, they scored 76% on something called the ILGA Europe Rainbow Map,
Oh, wow.
which measures how countries are doing in terms of LGBT human rights.
76%. That's pretty high. What about Poland?
Poland's score is much lower. It's 17%.
Oh, wow.
The social legal context there is a lot more conservative.
Okay.
For example, they don't have national laws prohibiting discrimination
Right.
based on sexual orientation or gender identity.
I see.
So we're talking about a pretty big difference
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
in the overall climate for LGBT folks in these two countries.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how those really contrasting environments
Right.
might be shaping healthcare professionals' experiences and ultimately their preparedness
Absolutely.
to work with LGBT patients. So tell me, how did this study actually measure preparedness?
So the researchers used a specialized tool called the LGBT DOCSS, which is a scale designed to assess their preparedness, healthcare professionals' preparedness,
Gotcha.
to work with LGBT patients.
Yes.
It breaks down preparedness into three key areas,
All right.
or subscales, we call them.
Okay.
Clinical preparedness, attitudes, and knowledge.
Okay, break those down for me a little bit.
Yeah, so clinical preparedness looks at how ready healthcare professionals feel
Okay.
to provide care to LGBT patients.
Okay.
Do they have the skills, the confidence, the resources?
Got it.
It's about their perceived ability to actually do the job well.
So it's not just about knowing the right things to do. It's about
Exactly.
feeling comfortable and confident in applying that knowledge
Exactly.
in a real setting.
Yes.
It's about attitudes.
Attitudes is more about their overall feelings and opinions
Okay.
toward LGBT individuals.
Right.
Are they accepting? Are they respectful? Are they unbiased?
Makes sense.
This gets at the underlying beliefs
Right.
that can influence how they interact with patients.
For sure. Attitudes definitely shape
Totally.
how we approach any interaction, really.
Yeah,
But especially in a healthcare setting where trust is so important.
absolutely.
Okay. And the last one was knowledge, right?
Exactly. This subscale assesses their understanding
Okay.
of LGBT-specific health needs and concerns.
Okay.
Do they know about the unique health disparities that LGBT people face?
Yeah.
Are they aware of cultural sensitivities?
Right.
It's about having that specialized knowledge base.
So the study looked at how ready they feel, their overall attitudes,
Right.
and their specific knowledge about LGBT health needs.
Exactly.
That's a pretty thorough way to assess this.
It is.
Okay, drum roll, please. Who scored higher overall? Spain
Um,
or Poland?
Well, as you might expect, given Spain's more progressive context,
Right.
Spanish healthcare professionals did have significantly higher overall preparedness scores.
Okay.
However, when you look at the three subscales individually,
Okay.
there are some interesting nuances.
Nuances. Ooh, I love nuances. Tell me.
Okay, well, here's a little bit of a surprise.
Okay.
When it comes to knowledge about LGBT communities
Mm-hmm.
and their specific health needs,
Yeah.
Polish healthcare professionals actually scored higher
What?
than their Spanish counterparts.
Hold on. So the country with less social and legal acceptance
Yeah.
of LGBT people had healthcare professionals that knew more
Yeah.
about their health needs.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it?
How do you make sense of that?
Well, one possible explanation is that in a context where there's less
Yep.
widespread societal awareness of LGBT issues.
Right.
Healthcare professionals in Poland may have had to actually actively seek out knowledge and training to fill those gaps.
That's a good point.
They might be more reliant on like professional development resources rather than simply absorbing information through, like bread or social osmosis, so to speak.
That's a really good point. It kind of challenges our assumptions about where knowledge comes from and how different environments might shape those learning journeys.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got this interesting contrast.
Yeah.
Spain scoring higher overall.
Yes.
But Poland taking the lead in knowledge.
Right.
What other insights did the study reveal about the factors that influence preparedness?
So the researchers looked at a number of different factors. Some of the most interesting findings relate to gender.
Okay.
They found that male healthcare professionals in both Spain and Poland reported feeling more clinically prepared to work with LGBT patients.
Okay.
While female professionals showed more positive attitudes toward LGBT individuals.
So the men felt more confident in their ability to provide care.
Yes.
While the women were more likely to have accepting and unbiased views.
That's right.
Now, I wonder if that reflects broader societal gender roles.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Where men are often encouraged to be more assertive and action-oriented, while women are socialized to be more empathetic and nurturing.
It's a really good point.
What are your thoughts?
It's important to remember that this study didn't directly investigate the reasons behind these gender differences.
Sure.
So we can't draw definitive conclusions.
Okay.
But it does raise some intriguing questions.
Totally.
About how gender socialization might be shaping their approaches to working with LGBT patients.
For sure. It definitely makes you think about how unconscious biases and ingrained social norms can play out in healthcare settings.
Totally.
Even among well-intentioned professionals.
Absolutely.
It also makes me curious about the patient perspective.
Yeah.
Do LGBT patients perceive these gender differences when they're interacting with these providers? That's a whole other
deep dive.
Deep dive waiting to happen.
Right.
But for now, let's stick with the study. Did they look at how age and profession might play a role in preparedness?
They did. In Poland, age was positively correlated with preparedness scores.
Okay.
In other words, older healthcare professionals tended to report feeling more prepared to work with LGBT patients.
Okay.
This was also true for physicians compared to nurses or midwives.
Interesting.
Physicians had higher overall scores.
So in Poland, more experience in the field seems to be linked to higher levels of preparedness. What about Spain?
In Spain, neither age nor profession seemed to have a significant impact.
That's a notable difference. Could it be that Spain's more accepting social and legal environment
It's possible.
creates a more level playing field for healthcare professionals regardless of their age or specific profession?
That's a very insightful observation.
Thank you.
It's certainly possible that in a context where LGBT issues are more openly discussed and integrated into society, healthcare professionals might have more consistent exposure to these topics throughout their careers, regardless of their age or their specialty.
Yeah, that a more inclusive societal backdrop could contribute to a more even distribution of knowledge and preparedness.
Yeah, absolutely.
So far, we've seen that Spanish healthcare professionals have higher overall scores.
Right.
But Polish professionals actually scored higher on knowledge about LGBT communities.
Exactly.
We've also seen some intriguing gender differences in both countries. Now, if there's one thing I hope listeners take away from this deep dive, it's the importance of training.
Yes.
Tell me, what did the study find about the impact of LGBT-related training on preparedness?
This is where the findings get really encouraging.
Okay.
In both Spain and Poland, participating in any kind of LGBT-related training was strongly associated with higher clinical preparedness scores.
Okay.
And what's even more interesting is the researchers found a dose effect.
A dose effect?
Yeah. Okay, explain.
They found that healthcare professionals who participated in 3 or more
LGBT-related trainings had significantly higher scores than those who attended 1 to 2 trainings or none at all.
So it's not just about checking a box and saying, yep, I did an LGBT training.
Exactly.
It's the more exposure and education they have, the more prepared they feel.
Exactly.
This is such a powerful takeaway because it shows that we can actually move the needle. on preparedness through targeted education and training.
Absolutely.
Right.
Even in contexts where societal attitudes might be less progressive.
Right.
Like in Poland.
Yeah.
Providing healthcare professionals with the knowledge and skills they need can empower them to feel more confident and competent.
That's a hopeful message.
It is.
It suggests that we don't have to wait for these sweeping societal changes to start making a difference in healthcare.
Yeah.
We can equip healthcare professionals with the tools they need
for sure
to provide culturally competent care right now.
Absolutely. And that's particularly important considering that even in Spain, which has strong legal protections.
Right.
And generally positive social attitudes toward LGBT people.
Right.
Systemic gaps still exist.
Okay.
Especially for marginalized groups within the LGBT community.
That's a really good reminder that progress isn't linear.
Right.
And even in those countries that are considered leaders, there's still work to be done to ensure truly equitable healthcare for everyone.
Yes.
What are some of those gaps that the study authors highlighted?
One example they mentioned is the experience of non-binary individuals who often face invisibility and challenges getting their needs met within a healthcare system that's still largely built around a binary understanding of gender.
That's a crucial point. It highlights the importance of moving beyond simplistic understandings of LGBT issues and recognizing the diversity of experiences within the community. It underscores the need for ongoing efforts to address those systemic gaps.
For sure.
And ensure that all LGBT individuals,
regardless of their identities or experiences, feel seen, respected, and well cared for within the healthcare system.
Exactly.
Okay, so far, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've seen how contrasting social and legal contexts in Spain and Poland seem to be playing out in these settings with some surprising findings about knowledge levels and the impact of training.
Sure.
We've also touched upon the complexities of gender.
Absolutely.
And those ongoing challenges of ensuring equitable care for everyone.
Right.
What other insights from the study should our listeners be aware of as we continue our deep dive?
So the study also looked at a few other factors that might influence preparedness scores.
Right.
And some of the findings are pretty interesting, such as, for instance, in Spain, being in a formalized partnership was associated with higher scores.
That's interesting. Formalized partnership meaning like married or in a civil union.
Exactly. Why would that make a difference when it comes to preparedness?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It could be that individuals in these partnerships are more likely to have encountered LGBT-related issues in like a more personal context.
Right.
Maybe through their partner's experiences or through, navigating healthcare systems as a couple.
Yeah.
This kind of lived experience could lead to like a greater awareness and sensitivity to those issues.
Makes sense.
Even in their professional lives.
Yeah, it suggests that like personal experiences can really shape our perspectives and ultimately how prepared we are to engage with these communities.
For sure.
The study also mentioned a category of other professions that had lower overall scores.
Yeah.
Any idea what types of healthcare roles might fall into that?
It's hard to say for sure because the study didn't provide specifics.
Gotcha.
But it's possible that certain fields within healthcare may have less direct interaction with LGBT patients. Or fewer opportunities for training on these specific issues.
Makes sense.
More research would be needed to understand those nuances.
For sure. It highlights the need for like more comprehensive and inclusive training programs that really reach all corners of the healthcare system.
Totally.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about those findings that were specific to Poland.
Right.
The study noted that age, city size, marital status, and profession all played a role in preparedness scores among these Polish healthcare professionals.
Right.
Starting with age, why do you think older professionals in Poland had higher scores?
To understand this, I think it's helpful to consider like the broader societal shifts that Poland has experienced in recent decades. There's been growing visibility and acceptance of LGBT individuals. But it's a relatively recent phenomenon. These older healthcare professionals who probably began their careers in a much less open environment may have had to like actively adapt and update their knowledge
Right.
and attitudes as society evolved.
That makes sense.
They've witnessed firsthand these changes
Right.
and perhaps felt a greater need to stay informed
Okay.
and adjust their practices accordingly.
Okay, it speaks to that importance of lifelong learning
Yes.
and the need to be flexible and responsive
Totally.
to these evolving social norms and patient demographics.
Absolutely.
What about the finding that professionals in cities with 20,000 to 100,000 inhabitants had lower scores compared to those in rural areas?
Right.
That seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It challenges the assumption that urban areas are always more progressive.
For sure.
One possible explanation is that smaller cities in Poland might have a more homogeneous culture,
Right.
less exposure to different perspectives
Okay.
and lived experiences,
Yeah.
including those of LGBT folks.
Yeah.
Healthcare professionals in these settings may simply encounter less diversity in their patient population
Right.
and therefore not have felt the same pressure
Okay.
or motivation to develop specialized knowledge
Makes sense.
and skills in working with LGBT patients.
It's a good reminder that we can't make sweeping generalizations
That's
about entire regions or groups.
Yes.
Each community has its own unique makeup and
Right.
cultural norms
Absolutely.
that can influence these practices and attitudes.
Totally.
Okay, next up is marital status.
Okay.
The study found that Polish healthcare professionals who were
Right.
divorced, separated, widowed, or married
Interesting.
scored higher than single individuals.
That's interesting.
What's your take on that?
Well, it's a really interesting finding.
Yeah.
And it could be related to the influence of personal experiences
Okay.
that we talked about earlier.
Right.
Individuals who've gone through major life transitions, like divorce or loss of a spouse,
Right.
might have developed a greater sense of empathy
Okay.
and understanding for others who are navigating
Sure.
challenging or unconventional life paths.
Makes sense.
These experiences could, foster a more
Yeah.
open and accepting mindset,
Right.
which translates into greater preparedness to work with
Okay.
diverse patient populations.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to frame it.
Thanks.
Seeing those life experiences
Yeah,
as potential sources of empathy and connection.
for sure.
It reminds us that we all have stories,
Right.
and those stories can shape how we show up,
Yeah,
both personally and professionally.
absolutely.
Okay, last but not least, the study found that Polish physicians
Yes.
had significantly higher scores compared to nurses and midwives.
Right.
Why might that be?
Well, there are a few possibilities.
Okay.
It could be that medical school curricula in Poland
Right.
place a greater emphasis on LGBT health issues
Okay.
compared to nursing or midwifery programs. Physicians might also have more opportunities for continuing education
Right.
on these topics throughout their careers.
Okay.
Another possibility is that physicians, in their role as diagnosticians and treatment planners,
Right.
have more frequent and direct interactions with patients,
Yeah.
which could lead to a greater awareness Yeah. of their diverse needs and lived experiences.
Those are all really plausible explanations.
Yeah.
It highlights the need to examine those structural and educational factors
For sure.
that might be contributing to these professional disparities
Right.
in preparedness.
Absolutely.
Understanding these nuances can help us develop
Yeah.
more targeted and effective interventions
Exactly.
to improve preparedness
Yes.
across all these healthcare professions.
Totally.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground
We have.
exploring these various factors that seem to influence healthcare professionals' preparedness
Yeah.
to work with LGBT patients.
Right.
We've seen that it's like a really complex interplay
It is.
of individual characteristics, professional experiences, and broader social and cultural contexts.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up,
Okay.
I want to bring it back to our listeners.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways they should keep in mind
Right.
as they process all of this information? Okay, so we've been focusing on healthcare professionals' preparedness to work with LGBT patients, but as we wrap up this deep dive, I kind of want to leave our listeners with something to ponder. We've seen how, societal attitudes and political policies play a big role in shaping how comfortable healthcare professionals feel. But what about the bigger picture?
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If those factors can have such a significant impact on preparedness when it comes to working with, one particular community,
Right.
what other systemic factors might be influencing healthcare disparities?
Yeah, that's such an important question. We've been looking at the LGBT community through this particular lens, but you're right. It makes us think about all the ways that societal biases and systemic inequalities
Absolutely.
can impact healthcare.
Totally.
And all sorts of individuals and communities, not just this one.
Precisely. We needed to think about how things like race, ethnicity, religion,
Right.
socioeconomic status, disability, countless other factors
All of that.
might be shaping the experiences of both patients and providers.
It's all interconnected, isn't it?
Yeah.
When one group is marginalized or underserved, it impacts us all.
Absolutely.
We can't just focus on these isolated issues.
Right.
We have to look at those like underlying systemic problems
Totally.
to really create a more equitable and just healthcare system.
I completely agree.
And that's where you, the listener, come in. As we've explored these findings today,
Yeah.
what's resonated with you? What questions has this sparked?
I know I have a few.
Right. Maybe you're thinking about your own experiences navigating healthcare.
Hmm.
Or perhaps you're wondering how you can contribute to creating a more inclusive and welcoming environment for everyone.
For sure.
Whatever it is,